For more on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we're joined by Khaled El-gindy. He's a political analyst and former advisor to Palestinian officials involved in negotiations with Israel. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. New today, there are reports that Israel shot down a Hamas drone. So what does that signal militarily? Will we see more drones in this region?
Well, I think what it tells us is that in the absence of kind of addressing the underlying core issues of this conflict, there is an incentive for a group like Hamas to continue to rearm and to find ever more sophisticated technology. We've seen the sophistication of its rocket capabilities increased just over 2 years ago, and previous rounds of violence as well. And so this is just another escalation in that sense. So unless we address the core issues of the conflict, we're going to have this never-ending kind of escalation, arms race, and drive to rearm and become more sophisticated in their capabilities.
And what about what Israel has militarily? What do you make of these targeted airstrikes that they are making in one of the most densely populated areas in the world?
Right. I mean, obviously, there's no comparison between the kind of firepower that Israel has and Hamas, which is essentially a few unsophisticated rockets by comparison. Israel has the most powerful military in both quantitative and qualitative terms in the entire region. And so targeting an area like this, as you said, in a very densely populated part of the world is always going to incur massive civilian casualties. And this has been the pattern each and every time that Israel has launched an offensive on Gaza. There are always, I believe the UN estimates something like 70 to 80% of those who are killed are civilians. And that's simply unacceptable. I think that's far too high to be considered simply collateral damage.
Well, the death toll keeps rising, and we've been hearing, that Israel has been mobilizing ground troops, but now it appears that Hezbollah is also amassing ground troops on Israel's northern border. Talk about these changing dynamics as they come hour by hour, seemingly.
Right. I mean, I think part of it is this question of a long, festering conflict between the Arabs and Israelis, and particularly Palestinians. Hezbollah sees itself as a champion of the Palestinian cause and was, I think, up until recently viewed as such. And it has lost a great deal of credibility and popularity in the Arab world since it has aligned itself with Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and that regime's very, repressive measures against its own population over the last 3 years. And so Hezbollah has lost a lot of popularity, and they may be trying to regain some of that lost ground to recapture its standing in the Arab world. And there's no better way to do that historically than by championing the Palestinian cause.
All right, Khaled El-gindy, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us from the Brookings Institution.
Thanks for having me.